Ford GT, a real lesson in lightness. Cars that are allergic to accidents.
Wow!
And worrying about parts for your car down the road. Time to check the tech. We see cars differently. Nice. We love them on the road and under the hood, but also check the tech and are known for telling it like it is. Ugly is included at no extra cost. The good, the bad, the bottom line. This is CNET on Cars. Welcome to CNET on Cars, the show all about high-tech cars and modern driving. I'm Brian Cooley. Well, it wasn't that long ago that we first met the new Ford GT in January 2015 at the Detroit Auto Show, where it was an unexpected surprise unveil. And the initial story was lots of power, audacious styling, exotic materials. To be honest, we've heard that song before in the supercar canon. What was really interesting was our more recent trip to Ford's Silicon Valley Research Institute, where we got a look at the car from a different angle and learned that less truly is more when it comes to the new GT. Let's face it, we hear about lightweight technology in the auto industry all the time, but for most car buyers, it doesn't really print. But what lightweight is all about is everything that a vehicle is all about. Better performance, better fuel efficiency, which leads to lower emissions, and better handling dynamics in every direction the vehicle goes. Committed to this ethic is the coming Ford GT, 600 plus horsepower from a turbo V6 mounted in the middle on an aluminum subframe behind a carbon fiber center tub driving the rear wheels. To be honest, that architecture has been done before. And you can buy a 700 horsepower Dodge Challenger for 60 grand. So what's really going on here? It's how the new GT will seek performance by burdening itself less, lighter weight, and less envelope, the vehicle's physical outline. It's the essential story of this car. Now, Raj, this is such a big effort. You've got a car with incredible performance, but it's got less weight, less bulk.
Right. Well, performance, now is a lot about efficiency. If you look at our latest F-150, all aluminum body, we took more than 700 pounds out of that vehicle. And all the attributes get better when you take weight out. Improve your fuel efficiency. We can soften up the suspension. The ride gets better. So it all feeds on itself.
Some of the parts we're seeing that you're also displaying here have a lot of carbon-reinforced plastics, things that were exotic and used in small volumes. You're seeing this is a high-volume technique to make a lot of parts in affordable cars?
Well, we can use performance vehicles to prove out some technologies and then bring it to high volume. Iterate the designs, take those learnings, and bring it to high-volume mainstream manufacturing.
So what used to be win on Sunday, sell on Monday is now lightweight on Sunday, sell on Monday. Right?
Absolutely. For the engineer, it's win on Sunday and then take that and mainstream on Monday.
How important is it to use carbon fiber versus aluminum?
Carbon fiber is lighter and it's strong. And as a designer, what it does is it gives me greater flexibility to create unique forms that I can't create in steel and aluminium.
So now these flying buttresses are one that you point out. Why couldn't you have made those flying buttresses out of aluminum? We hear that all the time. We couldn't have done that in metal.
Steel or aluminium needs to be pressed. You need to have a die and it's pressed, and you have maximum draw depth, and then you have radiuses which are really restricting based on your maximum depth of draw. It
would tear or be too thin?
It would tear, it would be too thin. I wouldn't get the draw depth between this point and this point in a tool.
One of the first things you notice as you come back like so is this thing gets real narrow real fast. In fact, you can reach across and touch the other glass.
There's three key factors in creating the ultimate performance car. One is lightweight. Second is aerodynamics. It has a really, really tapered cabin. It's really narrow at the cabin. And it allows us also to manage the airflow much better than on a traditional full volume car.
This tapering here helps the wind see less car as it's coming.
Yes.
We would normally think the face is kind of where it all ends.
So a normal car, you would fill out this volume. The
you just have
the glass would be here. But imagine how much...
That's a foot.
That's, on each side, which I'm not pushing through the air. We're managing the airflow to direct it straight onto the aero devices like the rear wheel.
Which is interesting. We hear so much about light weight of products.
But it's also light footprint.
The rage in supercars these days has been hybrid. Porsche's 918, Ferrari's LaFerrari, the McLaren P1. But to stay light and lean, Ford skipped the added motor, big battery, and the inverter that would have meant weight and volume to put somewhere. Less under the skin means less skin to move through the air.
Main reasons we chose this engine is it is compact. It's one of our mainstream engines. Yeah. Yes, it's got a little bit, few of the components are a little bit more exotic.
Little more.
But the foundations of this car are the same that's in your F-150. And it allows us to shrink wrap all this body around this engine. It also produces high power. Over 600 horsepower from this engine. It's also fuel efficient. If we didn't need the extra 2 cylinders, why do we need to put them on? If they added weight and they added fuel consumption and they added mass, why did we need them?
As I look at it here, I see these buttresses come back, and they seem to almost be supporting these pods over the rear wheels.
What's in there is an intercooler. There's a vent here.
There's a grill in the front there.
There's a grill. It's an intercooler and radiator. The air feeds through the buttress, so it's not just there.
So that's your bleed off to go into the engine.
Air feeds into the engine.
That's your intake run.
Yes. So we exhaust the air through the middle of the lamps. These engineering ideas created great aesthetic design ideas. It's a beautiful looking thing, right? But it's also clever and innovative, and that balance between looking amazing but also delivering a clever solution is what this car is all about.
Now, lightweight technologies do have some hurdles. They tend to be exotic in terms of rapid workflow and production. They tend to be more expensive right now, as we've heard about some of the carbon fiber technologies. And let's face it, the auto industry is one that is known for inertia, doing things the way it's done things, although that's changing quite a bit lately. Still, the GT's wholesale lightweighting approach is a leading-edge look at what is and will increasingly happen to mainstream cars. Lightweighting is no longer optional or limited to cars in the stratosphere like this. It makes every motion a car accomplishes better and does it with less energy. Now, all the specs and hard details I know you're craving, like its performance numbers and, of course, its price, are still out in the future away. This car doesn't go into production until 2016 and arrives as a model 2017. And you can bet they'll be spoken for prior to hitting showrooms. Now, we may differ on self-driving versus the joy of driving, but nobody takes any joy in the dumbest part of driving, a collision. But your next car may not even allow them, as the smarter driver will find out when CNET on Cars returns. Along the way to the fully self-driving car, we're going to make a few stops, one of which will be the crash-proof car. The concept is a car with sufficiently sophisticated driver assist technology that it can avoid or alert you to avoid almost any collision.
ESP initiates a one-sided braking intervention that can move the vehicle out of the danger zone.
That's a talent that is distinct from being able to drive itself. Volvo's new XC90, for example, is a first step toward its goal of crash-free, or at least injury from crash-free, cars by 2020. Among the tech to get it there is automatic braking to prevent frontal collisions, automatic braking to avoid turning left into oncoming traffic, pedestrian and animal detection, road edge and barrier detection, adaptive cruise control with steering assistance, and vehicle-to-vehicle communication. None of this is science fiction, although the V2V technology is still being brokered between regulators and car makers. At CES, Ford gave a very realistic look of coming V2V technology that can let cars signal each other.
Wow!
Providing another layer of inputs to help them avoid collisions.
A really important and efficient way to warn someone is the audible warning.
I heard a
Exactly.
Okay, which means get out the way.
Warning, exactly.
BMW is showing how an array of laser scanners looking out from around the car can detect almost anything that is about to occupy the same space as the vehicle, the purest definition of a collision, from another car to a pedestrian to a wall.
We need to keep in mind that the driver is the best sensor that we have. However, drivers do tend to get distracted, and we need to bring him back into the loop, which we do by providing the warning and assisting him with the braking situation.
The European Union is aiming for 0 road fatalities by 2050. and sooner than that, cutting them in half by 2020, largely relying on these kinds of technology bundles. Even in showrooms today, it pays to double-check if the car you're considering buying has as many of these technologies as possible on the march toward crash-proof driving. Welcome back to CNET on Cars, coming to you from our home at the Mount Tam Motor Club, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, it's early days for the Apple Watch, of course, and separate from Apple's incursion in the dash with their CarPlay technology, the watch is already getting a bit of a head start on a lot of risks as a way to make driving perhaps a little easier, hopefully a little better. Makes for a good Car Tech 101. Apple's Tim Cook has gone so far as to suggest that this, their watch, will one day replace the keys to your car and that elaborate wireless remote. We're not quite there yet. However, even in these early days, we're seeing a fair number of apps being offered by car makers and other car technology companies to hopefully make driving a little simpler, a little easier, a little better because you're wearing something smart on your wrist. BMW's iRemote was the first Apple Watch car app we ever saw. It came out on the debut day of the watch, and it works with the company's i line of highly electrified vehicles. You can do what is basically telematics that you're used to on your phone, but now on your wrist. Check the charge of your car, lock the doors, unlock the doors, get guidance back to where you parked it, precondition the climate. You can do that easily because it's an electric car. It doesn't really need to start the engine in any sense. And you can also see how the charge is going to map out to where you might want to go. The car will even, through that watch app, suggest the best time to leave to use the least electricity to get there. But again, not really anything you couldn't do on your phone already. Ditto for Porsche's app, which is the same basic basket of telematics, although it works in a broader, more conventional array of their cars. They apply it to Cayenne, Macan, and a few others, as well as their 918 hybrid supercar, but we're basically still in the telematics area. Hyundai's Blue Link app is actually on Android first, since that was the first smartwatch platform of any scale, but as of our show today, it's still in the process of being ported to Apple Watch. Now, Automatic's a popular app you put on your phone. It talks to an OBD2 wireless dongle you stick up under your dash. And it gives you all kinds of information about your trips, your driving style for economy or safety, also where you park your car and which trips you want to tag as expensible for business. Now, in terms of their watch app, they've chosen to keep things pretty lean and taken just those last two functions, where's my car, and tag this trip as business expense, and port those to the watch as the primary functions. They can bring everything there, they're just not sure it all belongs here, which I think is good, savvy restraint. Now, Pay by Phone is one of the class of connected parking apps that lets you check your status at the meter, feed the thing, find parking spaces in some cases of these apps. It seems like a natural to have on your wrist. That's when you're away from the car, but you want to have a very quick glanceable reminder that, hey, your time is running out, and perhaps you can extend the time right from your wrist. Now, you don't have to buy a new car to use Apple Watch with it. Add-on telematics makers like Viper, for example, know that porting their existing phone apps to Apple Watch is a sexy headline, allowing you to go to your wrist to unlock, precondition, or get the location alerts about your car that you already can get on their phone app, and command a lot of these things by voice. Again, not new, but different. Okay, a couple of organizing principles to help you think about where the watch fits in your driving. First, they have two basic locations. One is while driving, glanceable on your wrist, which tends to already be up high and in your view while you're driving. Tends to be good ergonomics and keeps your gaze roughly where it should be if those notifications are worthwhile. The other area is, of course, out of the car, when you're away from the vehicle and you need something to very quickly and cleanly remind you that maybe you need to get back to your car, time running out on your meter, or an easy way to get back to where your car is if you forgot where you parked it, or tell you if it's charging or needs to be charged. And then you've got two competing areas of platforms that are coming to compete with or perhaps augment the watch. And that would be things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which are going to bring a lot of this smartphone DNA to a richer, fixed display in the dash that is better integrated with the car. You've also got to keep an eye on head-up display, which car makers are going headlong to adopt. And that can give you an extremely elegant presentation of information right where your glance already is and should be, and again, highly integrated to the vehicle. Either way, the watch is showing some early legs for the driver, but as with most of its modes that it's promising, it is yet to promise that it is better, not just different, from how we're doing things now. In a moment, how old is too old when it comes to buying a used car? When CNET on Cars returns.
What Jaguar needs is a small family exec saloon, something to really hammer home to the Germans just how good Jags can be. And it hopes the XZ is the car for the job. It's taken all its best bits and put them right where the Germans can see them. Now, two questions remain. Is it worthy of wearing a Jaguar badge? And should the Germans be afraid? I can answer both of those with one word. Yes.
Find more from the XCar team of CNET UK at cnet.com/XCar. Welcome back to CNET on Cars. I'm Brian Cooley. It's a time on the show when we take one of your emails, and this one comes in from Luke M., who's writing in from Pennsylvania. Got a question about older cars and parts. He says, when buying a used car that he intends to last a long time, how old is too old? What I mean is, he says, what is too old when it comes to repairs due to brittle or worn parts? Well, Luke, I can't speak to any particular car about how fast it will age. There's too many variables about the car itself, what make, model, and year, how it's been driven, how many miles, how many years, and in what kind of climate. I have to leave that to you. But as long as parts are available for whatever car you buy, you're generally in pretty good shape to either do it yourself, find an inexpensive shop, or go to the dealer. But as an owner myself of mostly older cars, my youngest is 13, my older ones are 47 and 48, I can tell you that parts availability is kind of the linchpin to keeping a car running and doing so affordably. Now let's talk about the parts world. Automakers generally are on the hook to make a full array of replacement parts as long as a given model of car is out there under warranty. Now those warranties will vary dramatically. Some car makers are 3-year warranties, some are 10 years, and you've got different warranties for emissions, bumper to bumper, and powertrain. So that's kind of your universe of fresh, off-the-shelf, new parts. Now, once your car has been out of production so long that the car maker no longer builds a lot of parts for it, you've got 5 other avenues to keep it running and to keep the right parts on it. First of all, you've got the aftermarket. These are companies that make parts that are virtually identical to the factory parts, but they're not made by the factory. Next is remanufactured, or what they could also call reconditioned. These are old parts that came off a car worn out and got rebuilt up to, hopefully, factory spec to have another go. Down from that, you just get plain old used parts that may still have plenty of life in them. We used to get these at junkyards exclusively. Now you get them at eBay as much as you go to the boneyard and carry your wrenches around and pull your own parts. The latter is a lot more fun than going online, but maybe not as fruitful. Then there's a concept of NOS. This is new old stock. That means a part that was sold new by the dealer or the factory, but never moved off the shelf. It's obsolete now, but there may be a little bit of stock out there. These are prized by a lot of folks that have older cars. You can find these again typically on eBay or from specialty NOS parts retailers. And finally, if your car achieves classic status and has enough people out there that own it, there will be companies that retool to make parts for it again. They often buy the tooling and the dies from the factory or the factory supplier, and they're making virtually identical new parts again. But this is a bit of a crapshoot. Your car has to be among those that achieves true classic status and have enough folks crying out for the particular part that you want made again. The bottom line to keep any old car running and flush with parts that you need is popularity. I'd rather chase down parts for the oldest Accord than for the last model Merkur. It's a matter of numbers. If you have enough people who drove the car for enough years, there's enough residual demand for, in many cases, decades to keep the factories cranking out the parts. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Keep those emails coming on cars@cnet.com. We use a lot of your input for the topics of our show segments. We're also open to your suggestions about new segments you'd like to see us cover. I read every email, respond to as many as I can. I'll see you next time we check the tech.